Um, Nana korobi ya oki. So this is a Japanese proverb that I wanted to talk about today. And well, first I'll explain what it means, right? So nana means seven, and korobi means to fall down. Uh, and ya is another way to say eight, and oki means to get up or to stand up. So it means seven times fall down and eight times stand up. That's the basic translation, right? So um, so this is really talking about resilience. So in my time that living in Japan, this is really a theme in Japanese culture, and I noticed it. I noticed it a lot as I lived there. That people really do. They really do live their lives this way. I'll give you another example of that. So when you go to a sports contest or something like that in Japan, you'll often hear the word gambaru or gambatte, which it means, can roughly translate it. It means to try or to keep going or to keep trying is the rough translation of that. So at first when I lived there, I thought this is kind of weird. Like I guess I didn't really get it, right? Because I grew up in the United States, and when it comes to sports or competitions, there really is kind of a sense that winning is what matters, right? And you try hard and you practice and all that, but I mean, the goal and the purpose is to win, right? So winning is rewarded and losing is not. And if you try and you lose, that's not really rewarded either, right? So the expectation and the kind of payoff is from winning, right? But of course, there's that also in Japan. But as far as how the emphasis is more on trying hard and showing up and putting in the work and giving your all, right? Giving your all, whether you succeed or fail. The real admirable thing, and the thing that people respect more, is that you put in the time and that you showed up and you gave it your all, right? So there is admiration for that in Japan, whether you succeed or fail, regardless of whether you succeed or fail. And I I think this is I didn't get it, but now I do, and I lived there for a lot of years, so I really feel this is an extremely positive aspect of Japan, and it's something that we can all take something from, and it relates to this idea of hope. And when my son was diagnosed with Leigh syndrome, which is a terminal illness, and children often die very soon from that. I was forced, into this, to grapple with this idea of hope, unexpectedly, and nobody wants that, right? And so I had to face this, and I really, to be honest, I felt a lot of despair, and I found it hard to hope, and I couldn't see much to hope for. His life, he would be faced with challenges, and he would lose abilities that he previously had, and then he would die. So I didn't feel a lot to be hopeful for. But you know, you live, and he lived, and I lived, and as time went on, I started to realize that hope isn't really about some miraculous change in his health or his life, or my life, or some cure that's gonna pop up out of nowhere, because life normally doesn't work that way. Um, what hope really became for me was this idea of getting up and resilience and standing up from when you fall down, and showing up for yourself, but even more importantly, showing up for others, right? Like whether whether you change their life or you do something miraculous for them, it's more important that you just be there, you show up. And I show up for my son, and I show up for myself, and he lives his life and I live my life, and every day we show up for each other. And that's what hope is about, and that's what life is about, I think. So I think that everybody can take this positive thing from Japanese culture, and we can show up for each other. Especially when it comes to people facing these kind of medical problems, or other things where it feels like there is no hope. There is, and that hope is about standing up and showing up and being there. So I just wanted to talk about that, and a little bit about something in Japanese culture that really had a positive impact on my life, and how I use that way of thinking in my life now. And me and my son have a happy life. We have a positive life, and I hope that it helps others to hear this story. So if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and give it to me. Thank you for your time.